She is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, also a TV correspondent at CW6 News San Diego, as well as One American News Network. Her website, thekdreport.com. Remember, she's streaming live on Facebook, also periscope.com, and they spell the last name D-V-O-R-A-K. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself? Do you have a good New Year?
I did have a good New Year, I think, and boy, I made a lot of reservations.
Reservations?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
I figure once COVID clears up, boy, I'm going to make the rounds. I'll go down to the drive-in movie. I think they got...
So what you're telling me is you're like Joe Biden then. They're just keeping you in the bunker. Do we know if you exist?
Well, I don't know. He's the daddy groundhog, yes. Well, I'll tell you what. Right around the corner is the big to-do, and we're going to talk about that. But I got to ask you real quick. Attorney Wood and a few other people are all of a sudden coming out talking about Vice President Mike Pence could actually has the power to block the election of Joe Biden as president and Kamala Harris as vice president.
Yeah.
And, Attorney Lynn Wood is pretty good, but these words, he could face arrest and imprisonment for treason and execution by the firing squad. Now, they're going back to Daniel Boone days when they're reading that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't expect Mike Pence to say, you know what, I think we're going to stick with another 4 years of Trump. I mean, I would presume that he is going to look at the situation and, the country would probably be set on fire almost immediately. However, the group of senators now that have coalesced around this idea of getting a 10-day audit of the elections in these states where there had been disputed whether the numbers are real or there was any kind of interference with the machines and, or adding ballots or taking ballots out and so on. That's more likely to happen, and that's something that probably should happen because President Trump has not, unlike other presidents of the past, he has not got his day in court over this. And there are just so many people on both sides of the political aisle that say that these numbers that have come out of this election are just not, they're not possible. And it's unfathomable to believe that, millions of people voted for Biden, and many less voted for Obama. Obama at least was a historic president, his first term. And they're asking the public to just leap to whatever conclusions they want them to believe that, oh yeah, this is done, it's over, the president hasn't got any standing with the court. And the fact that he hasn't got standing with the court means that this audit is that much more important, because moving forward, Americans want to know if they vote, that their vote matters, and that it's not just going to be controlled by the political elites. Because if you let something like this slide and there was widespread fraud, then they know exactly what to do for next time. And both parties are partaking in this activity, by the way. And you're already seeing some senators and some people, grassroots organizations now coming out against certain senators like Tom Cotton, who's not supporting this move for the 10-day audit for the president, saying he's up for re-election in 2022, and he'll face a stiff primary, and he will not make it back to Washington, D.C. That they will put all their efforts to get him out of office. So this is Republicans saying, look, this is really important, and if you're not going to be supportive of this, then we think that you're not really a conservative in the party, and we think that you're the so-called moderate. But with Mitch McConnell, you're voting along the same lines as the Democrats, and that's just not representative of these people. And that's what I think happens to a lot of politicians. They come to D.C. and they get bought out by the lobbyists and so on here, and the American people are just not going to put up with it, especially their constituents.
So, in your opinion, this group, and you have them listed on a report that you sent to me.
Yeah.
These are the people that, are putting it on the line.
Yep.
But to show you the other direction, there's two Democrats that are asking Director Christopher Wray now to open a criminal probe into President Donald Trump after another leaked phone call. You think, oh, did he call Russia again, or the Ukraine, or who did he call? No,
Republicans.
He called Georgia.
He called Republicans in Georgia. So I mean,
I think the Georgia secretary there, Raffensperger, Perger, whatever. I think possibly that Brad, that's his first name, may have a mole in his office or something. But,
no, I think he actually is. I think he actually said that his office has said that they felt the need to give this to the Washington Post. It's not unlawful what he did. I mean, if there's anybody on the phone call, Georgia's a state where you can, without asking the rest of the participants in the phone call, you can release a phone call. In California, as you know, if you do that, you get arrested and thrown in jail. Just look at what some of the undercover work that's happened by various journalists who've actually been thrown in jail for undercover footage and investigative reporting. So it just varies on state like that. I don't think there's any legal recourse. But when you listen to the phone call in its entirety and you put things again in context, the phone call wasn't about that. I mean, if the media was really great, they pick the clip that they want and then they leave the first half of the sentence out. The president believes that he won that state by tens of thousands of votes, and he only needs 11,000. And so he was trying to get data from the Georgia secretary there, and he is refusing to give Trump and his attorneys access to the information, like how many what were the percentage of the votes that got kicked back out of the machines, did you verify the signatures with the actual paper ballots, which they did not. And this is why the number keeps coming back the same, because they're not looking at the signatures, and they're not taking the other irregularities with the machine all going down in the middle of the night in unison, and then everything powering back up, and then Biden wins the election. So I mean, this is what the conversation was about, but that's not what the media reported. And of course, they did the election tomorrow in Georgia. And they really are showing their hand on this. They really are.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kimberly, that the two Democrats that are asking the FBI to get involved, and get him, go get him. You think about what two states in the United States are having the biggest problem and the biggest dictatorship going on. Let's see, one would be California, and the other would be New York. So let's see. People that are complaining is Ted Lieu, Democrat California, and Kathleen Rice, Democrat New York. Wow, somebody must have just said, okay, it's your turn.
Well, Ted Lieu, if you remember what Ted Lieu, he was in the middle of a scandal in California a few years back over, allowing weapons to essentially kind of pass through his district, and he got, penalized, sanctioned by Nancy Pelosi on that. But here we have people that basically have like committed criminal acts themselves that are trying to go to the FBI to get them to go after Donald Trump, and I have no idea on what grounds. I mean, if you listen to the phone call in its entirety, you're going to go, well, no, the president's just trying to get access to that electoral data so his attorneys can actually go through and look to see if everything is on the up and up, or if they have any questions they want to be able to ask the governor of the state, who continues to push back against Trump as well. I'm certain that when Trump hits Twitter and nails these guys for being traitors and his lovely tweets that he's had, that's not helping the situation or a good working relationship with these two gentlemen in Georgia. But that's the only way the president's able to get his side of the story out. And in this case, the mainstream media just forgot his side again and decided to take a few clips within that phone call that, were completely taken out of context when you listen to the entirety of the conversation.
And what I did, I went to a left-wing source to get the story that was printed up, that's trying to make it look official, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, as members of Congress and former prosecutors, we believe Donald Trump engaged in solicitation of or a conspiracy to commit a number of election crimes. We want an immediate investigation. And NBC News, they said that Trump wanted Raffensperger to find enough votes for him to erase President-elect Joe Biden's margin of victory in the state. Do you think he ever said that? Hey, I want you to find just enough so I can win.
Yeah.
And then they have, here's a quote. So look, all I want you to do is this. I want you to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, Trump said, because we won the state. But you know, you read that and it's like, he wants them to raise it 11,700. He said one more.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
this is the lunacy with the media, and this will be, of course, this will be a 2-day story. This will be gone by Tuesday evening. Nobody will be reporting on this, and for the Democrats, I mean, right now they ought to really just kind of just stay in the background, because if they get themselves involved in this and start wanting to go after the president, then they're going to find themselves in a difficult situation, because now if this continues to go where it's going, you're going to have an electoral audit, and now you can figure out maybe what really happened in a lot of these states, and the American people are going to be able to see this spotlighted, because what this 10-day audit essentially does, I mean, they're going to go in and look at the numbers, they're going to look at the irregularities and why these states are contested. But this is going to force the mainstream media to have to cover this now. So once the whole thing happens on Wednesday, and we've got tens of thousands of people coming into D.C. for that rally, which is basically an all-day event, while Congress is going to be debating and arguing over these states that are going to be contested. The mainstream media is going to be forced to cover this now. And for those people who are like going, oh, really? I had no idea. I thought something like that, but now here I see it on TV, and this is the challenge that they have. So if they're trying to do a sideshow to go after the president for another phone call like they did with the Ukrainian situation, I think that that it's going to backfire. And I just think too that you're seeing a lot of states that are the blue states that are under such restraints with COVID-19 that people have had it, and I think the Democrats, especially in the blue states, have really pushed their luck a little too far. They think that they can carry on doing this and nobody's going to notice or say anything, and I think that they're in for a rude awakening on that one.
Yeah, and if you look at what I had a long story today about the people that are challenging the mayor of New York, hey, vote for me because, I'm going to give you more diversity, or I'm going to, whatever. You can't go that way. You've got to, in the report that you have, 39% of Americans believe the election was rigged.
Mm-hmm.
The belief is held by Republicans, 67%, Democrats 17%, Independents 31%. But here's the thing, listener. Kimberly points out that there is a long precedent of Democratic members of Congress raising objections to presidential election results.
Yeah.
And you'll say, what year was that? Wait a minute, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 6 years they've raised hell?
Yeah.
So to speak.
Well, I mean,
That's what you say when you miss the golf ball on a swing.
Yeah, well, I just think too that this is where the Democrats are hypocritical. I mean, virtually every election since the late 90s they've contested where there's Republicans vying for power. So I mean, for the and this is not going to stop the process of transfer of power or anything. We're just going to have a debate about what to do and get an audit here of 5 House members, 5 senators, and 5 Supreme Court justices. If that's mandated in the Constitution and it's been used, it was last used in 1877, then you actually, this is a process that has to unfold. And as it unfolds, these people are going to have to, make, tough decisions as to whether the law was followed. And, a lot of these, governors just kind of willy-nilly saying, oh, yeah, we're going to take in the ballots, until 3 days after the election, or we're going to print up some extra ballots. We ran out of some, so we're going to go down to Kinko's and actually print up some extra ballots. I mean, those kind of things the American people should be concerned about.
I think Kimberly has a trade out with Kinko's. Yeah.
Maybe they'll get good business out of that.
I think whenever they're doing this big deal, on Wednesday, maybe they should hold up signs, 1969, 2005,
Yeah.
because according to your report that I got, Democratic senators joined with the Democratic House members in forcing votes in both houses on whether to accept the presidential electors being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't say, oh, those little Republicans, they're just not happy. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's a process, and we need to go through the process, and it's highly irregular for people to say we should thwart any sort of discussion on the topic, because there was a lot of fraud that took place during this election. And maybe some people will say, well, it was a pandemic and we just need to cut people slack. But if we don't change this now and we don't recognize this now, then what we're going to do is we're going to allow this to continue to happen, and we will never have another free and fair election.
All right, we're Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And we got to have responsible foreign policy, and that's why she's going to go down there this Wednesday and make sure that everybody follows what they're supposed to do. And by the way, Kimberly will be reporting live first part of the show on Wednesday there. Let us know what's going on. I know Christmas has already gone by, but will they have a who's naughty and who's nice list for Republicans who aren't getting on board with this whole voter fraud thing?
Well, yeah, this is where all of the grassroots organizations, and you're going to start seeing, especially if Biden takes the Oval Office, you're going to see, I think, something that's going to dwarf the Tea Party that formed right after Obama started getting Obamacare rolling back in 2010, 2009. You're going to see a movement like that, and this is, in essence, what some of these leaders are already saying is, look, we're looking at a naughty and nice list for sure, but we're also looking for candidates to replace you with your upcoming elections. And they're using that power within their own states to make sure that their voices are heard, and the constituents of these people, they voted, and they want their elected representative to represent their views, not the views of Washington, D.C. So, yes, there's definitely name-taking going on. They're going to look at this. This is why you're seeing the list on the Senate side growing, because senators who are up for re-election in 2022 are going to be under the microscope. And if there's a huge, massive movement out there to primary not only Republicans or kick out Democrats, and their name's not on the good list, then yeah, they're going to be primaried. It's going to cost them a lot of money to defend a primary challenge and then go on and have a general election challenge. So this is one way that the people that live in the country who voted legally, lawfully, this is one thing that they can do. This is what they have left in their toolbox, that they can do this. They can go in and just have it's gonna be a Tea Party like movement again. I think only I think it's gonna be a lot larger, just because the people out here are saying this is the hill worth dying on. We can't give our elections over to whoever is the highest bidder, and that's what their views are saying on this front. Of course, the Democrats are happy with how the elections turned out. They're not complaining all too much, but there are a lot of people, half the country out there, that's really upset about this. And going forward with COVID and the continued lockdowns that these blue states are providing, we're going to see a dramatic shift in this country, I believe.
All right, here's the hard question, Kimberly. Do you think the Democrats feel comfortable with the way the voting went? Those that said, hey, we got to do something, that those that were probably in on the Dominican-type machines? Or are they going to be worried?
I think
worried about that maybe they won't be coming around after 4 years.
Yeah, well, I think that where you're going to see a dramatic shift is going to be in the 2022 elections, where you're going to see a lot of incumbents ousted. That happened during the Tea Party. You remember Eric Cantor, who was up, on Capitol Hill living high and mighty, and he had no idea, and he got blindsided by a primary challenger and lost his seat in Congress as a result. So there is precedent where the Republicans have done this and Democrats have done this, And it just comes down to the legal aspect of it and making sure that we're doing everything we can to get an honest, counting of the election. And American people want to be held accountable for that.
All out of time. We'll be counting how many tea bags are in that big crowd on Wednesday. Yeah, little tiny tea bags. All right, Kimberly Dvorak, KDReport.com. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
All righty.
Talk to you later.